Josh Spivak is a senior fellow at the Hugh Carey Institute for Government Reform at Wagner College. He has written a master's thesis on the history and use of the recall in California's legislature. In addition to studying the recall, he's written over 200 op-ed and book reviews on a host of political process and historical topics, and has a JD from Columbia Law School as well. So Josh, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Roger.
So as you see this as an outsider looking at San Diego's situation, as you see the recall as a tool, what comes to your mind?
Well, in San Diego's case, the recall law is almost a disaster. It is a disaster because the amount of signatures needed and the time frame that is required, and there's all of these other positions in the law that will make this a constant litigation fight.
Let me ask you about, to name a couple of those. When you say a disaster, what's wrong with our recall law?
Oh, so you have 39 days to get the signatures, and then you have another possible 30 days to supplement if you fail. Compare that to LA, which has 120 days. Oakland, San Francisco, Oakland has 160 days. California law has 160 days. So it's just demanding a much shorter time frame, a very short time frame. The amount of signatures needed is 100,000, a little over 100,000. So that would be maybe the fifth largest amount ever required for a recall to get on the ballot in the U.S.
Wow. Now, in terms of that 101,000, is this a percentage, right, of the people who voted last November?
No, it's 15% of registered voters.
Ah, okay. All right.
So in different jurisdictions have different totals. Now, 15% of registered is not bad nationwide, but if San Diego followed state law for local jurisdictions, it would be 10%. So that's a large difference.
Now, have you ever seen a situation in which there were two recalls announced basically at the same time? This seems to be something I've never heard of before.
Oh yeah, that happens. It's not uncommon. It happened in Oakland last year. There was there was an attempted recall of the mayor over Occupy Oakland protests. The recall never got on the ballot, but there were several different attempts to get the recall going. However, San Diego law is not totally clear on what happens there. According to the city attorney, it doesn't really make a difference. That, when you start your recall is the one that counts. But a plain reading of the law suggests otherwise, that first petition filed starts the time clock of the 39 days.
So what you're saying, Josh, is that all of these issues and uncertainties could form the basis of a legal challenge by Bob Filner or someone else against, even if we get the 101,000 signatures within that time frame, there could be real challenges to the legality of what's going on here.
Yes, and I think it's more than just that there are challenges that they could win. The recalls are very susceptible to challenges to delay and to use up funds for the opposition. And it's really a tactic that you see all over the country where elected officials use litigation to stop recalls, to drain the opposition, and eventually the petitioners frequently give up. I don't know that will happen here. This is a much different situation, but you see that weapon used. The tactic of litigation is very powerful in recalls.
Josh Spivak with us. Now, Josh, okay, so let's assume we get to the point of getting the 101,000, they're valid, the election is set. What, as you look across the landscape here, particularly in California, and I know we had a very famous recall of Governor Gray Davis years ago, but do these things work? Do they actually, what's the percentage of times that the recall prevails?
It's very high. So last year there were 168 recalls nationwide. Of those, 82 people were kicked out and 26 people resigned. So you have 108 of 168. The year before, it was 151 recalls, and of those, 84 people either were kicked out or resigned. And I'm understating the case. That's based on what I've been able to track. It could be a little higher. The problem is getting the recall on the ballot. So last year, as I said, there were 168 recalls. There were 509 attempts.
Wow. Okay, so it's a 3-to-1 or better that you're not going to get on the ballot with this. And what is the principal reason that that happens?
There's no specific reason. It's just hard to get the signatures. A lot of the times the people are just frustrated and want to use the recall to push the elected official one way or the other. But in a case where you're trying to kick the guy out, there's only get the signatures or don't.
Yep. All right, Josh, thank you very much. We're going to keep in touch as we go through this process.